Let's talk about one of the biggest, most passionate debates in American history, one that really gets to the core of who we are. Was the United States founded to be a Christian nation? It's a question you hear all the time. Well, today, we're going to unpack the history and see if we can find a clear answer.
So yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? On one hand, you could say, well, of course it was. I mean, most of the founders were Christians, and they lived in a world that was just steeped in Christian values. But when you actually dig into the historical evidence, you find a much more complex and, honestly, a much more deliberate vision for what this new nation was supposed to be. So to get to the bottom of this, we're going to follow the evidence step by step. First, we'll look at what religion was actually like back then. Then, we'll zoom in on the founders themselves, and you might be surprised at what they believed. After that, we'll dive into the Constitution, the actual rule book, see what principles they built it on, and finally, we'll connect it all to why this is still such a hot topic today. All right, first things first, let's set the stage. To really get inside the minds of the founders, we have to understand the world they were living in. So, what did faith actually look like in 18th century America?
Now, what's really fascinating here is that, the population was overwhelmingly Protestant Christian, no doubt about it. But it was far from being one big unified group. You had Anglicans, Congregationalists, Presbyterians, Baptists, you name it. And these groups weren't always singing hymns together. They were often in competition, and many of them knew what it felt like to be persecuted, both back in Europe and, yes, even right here in the colonies.
Okay, so that's the backdrop. All these different denominations competing for influence. So what about the founders themselves? It's so easy to just lump them all together, but the truth is their personal beliefs were all over the map. I mean, just look at this spectrum of belief. It's incredible. On one end, you have a deeply devout, traditional Christian like Samuel Adams, who people literally called the last of the Puritans. But then you've got John Adams, a Unitarian. He didn't even believe in the Trinity. And then there's Thomas Jefferson, a deist. He believed in a creator, sure, but he rejected all the miracles and supernatural stuff. In fact, he famously took a razor to his Bible and cut out all the parts he didn't see as rational, just to focus on Jesus' moral teachings. This is a huge range of personal faith. And this is the part that is just so crucial to understand. These differences weren't just some academic debate for them. They had seen with their own eyes what happens when one religious group gets its hands on the levers of government power. They knew that when the state enforces a religion, you don't get genuine faith. You get conflict, you get corruption, you get oppression. That experience shaped everything. So with all that experience and all those different beliefs, how did they turn that into a system of government? We can actually move beyond their personal letters and private thoughts and look at the most important evidence of all, the actual documents they wrote for the whole country. Now this, right here, tucked away in Article 6 of the Constitution, was absolutely revolutionary, the No Religious Test Clause. Think about that. It explicitly says the government can never require you to hold a specific religious belief to serve in public office. In a world where kings and queens and officials were almost always tied to a state church, this was a radical, radical break. It created a government based on citizenship, not on your personal creed. And then, of course, you get the big one, the First Amendment. It gives us this incredible 1-2 punch for religious freedom. The first part, the Establishment Clause, says Congress can't set up a national official church, like the Church of England. And the second part, the Free Exercise Clause, protects your right as an individual to believe or not believe whatever you want without the government getting in your business. This whole idea of untangling church and state, it actually has a name: disestablishment. You see, before the Revolution, a lot of the colonies had official, tax-supported state churches. If you lived there, you paid for that church, whether you belonged to it or not. And founders like Jefferson and Madison fought tooth and nail, most famously in Virginia, to completely dismantle that system. They wanted faith to be a matter of conscience, not a government mandate. So when you put all of this together, you take their diverse beliefs, their experiences with persecution, and the legal framework they built, a very, very clear principle starts to emerge. And this slide right here really gets to the heart of it. Did many of the founders personally believe that religion and morality were vital for a good society? Absolutely, they said so all the time. But they drew a very thick, very bright line between that private belief and public policy. They believed you could promote virtue as a societal good without using the power of the government to force one specific religion on everybody. So here's the brilliant part. This separation of church and state wasn't meant to be hostile to religion at all. It was actually designed to protect it.
They wanted to protect religion from being corrupted and weaponized by government, and they wanted to protect government from the endless, bloody religious wars that had torn Europe apart for centuries. In their view, true faith could only flourish when it was completely voluntary. Which brings us to today. Okay, that's the history lesson. Why does any of this matter now? Well, because the exact principles the founders were wrestling with are at the very center of huge conversations we're still having in modern America. Their vision is the reason we're a country that's home to so many different faiths, where everyone is supposed to be equal under the law, whether they're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, or have no faith at all. Every time we debate things like prayer in schools or religious symbols on public land, we're relitigating the separation of church and state. It all comes back to that fundamental question they posed about our national identity. Are we defined by one religion or by a shared promise of liberty for all? So, after looking at all this, what's the big takeaway? Well, the consensus among historians is pretty clear. While the United States was, and in many ways still is, a nation of mostly Christian people, its founders very deliberately created a secular government. A government that is officially neutral on religion, precisely so it could protect everyone's freedom of conscience. And if you want one last powerful, just kind of mind-blowing piece of evidence, think about this. In the entire United States Constitution, the supreme law of the land, how many times do the words God, Jesus, or Christianity show up? The answer is 0, not once. And that wasn't an accident, it was a choice. And that really leaves us with this final thought. The great American experiment was this. Could a government that stays out of religion actually be the best protector of religion? Realizing how their secular laws were designed to protect personal faith for everyone, that isn't just a history lesson. It's the central, and you have to admit, brilliant challenge of their vision. Thanks for joining this explainer.